There is a silent journey that begins not in the outer world but deep within the individual soul. We speak so often of success as if it were a destination out there, measured in accolades, wealth, applause. But true success is not found in external validation. It emerges from the intimate, often painful dialogue we hold with ourselves. To succeed in the truest sense is to become whole, to integrate the fragmented parts of who we are, and to courageously step into our full being. Success begins not with action, but with awareness, not with control, but with understanding, and not with others, but with you. The mirror we avoid often reflects the doorway to our destiny. Today, let us step through it. We like to think of ourselves as creatures of light, rational, compassionate, good. We present our virtues to the world and take comfort in our achievements, our politeness, our kindness. But beneath that surface lies another world, quiet, hidden, and often feared. It is the world of the shadow, and to ignore it is to live half a life. The shadow is not something to be exiled or conquered. It is a part of us. It is born the moment we begin to differentiate between what is acceptable and what is not, what we are allowed to feel and what we are not. When we were children and told not to cry, not to shout, not to be selfish, we did not cease to feel those things. We simply buried them. And so began the making of the shadow. But the shadow does not disappear. It lingers in our unconscious, leaking out through our behaviors, our fears, our projections onto others. A man might sabotage every intimate relationship not because he lacks the capacity for love, but because the vulnerability it requires terrifies him. A woman might lash out at her colleagues not because she is cruel, but because she never learned to confront her own sense of inadequacy. What we do not face in ourselves, we force the world to face on our behalf. There is a particular pain in self-betrayal. It is subtle, often nameless, yet constant. When we deny our shadow, we are not avoiding pain. We are multiplying it. We become strangers to ourselves, caught in patterns we cannot explain. We ask, why do I keep doing this? Or why do I always end up here? As if life were happening to us, not through us. But the truth is simpler and harder. We cannot heal what we refuse to see. There was once a man who by all outward appearances was successful. He had a career, friends, respect. But in private he was haunted by a deep loneliness. He told himself he was independent, that he didn't need anyone, yet relationship after relationship crumbled. He always left before things got too close. He convinced himself it was because the other person wasn't the one. But deep down, he was terrified. Terrified of being seen, terrified of being known and then rejected. His shadow whispered, "You are not enough. If they see you, they will leave." And so he left first. This man began therapy, not because he wanted to, but because the pain of avoidance finally outweighed the fear of confrontation. And as he peeled back the layers, he met parts of himself he had long abandoned. The little boy who once felt unworthy, the teenager who was shamed for crying, the young man who was told that needing others was weakness. In facing those hidden parts, he found not just wounds, but wisdom. His shadow had guarded not just his fears, but his power, his creativity, his empathy, his truth. Facing the shadow is not an act of indulgence, it is an act of courage. It requires us to sit in silence, to ask uncomfortable questions, to trace our reactions to their roots. It means owning our jealousy rather than disguising it as ambition. It means recognizing that our anger may be a mask for grief. It means accepting that even our most noble actions might sometimes be driven by hidden needs. But in that raw confrontation, a strange thing happens. We begin to feel whole. The parts of us that were once split, repressed, shamed, they integrate. We no longer need to wear so many masks, because we have nothing to hide from ourselves. And when we stop hiding from ourselves, we stop hiding from life. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your twin. It is the half of you that has waited patiently for your return. And in embracing it, you reclaim your full humanity. The anger you once feared becomes clarity. The grief you buried becomes compassion. The fear you denied becomes strength. The journey inward is never easy, but it is the only path to becoming real. We cannot become our best selves by pretending to be better than we are. We become our best selves by daring to be fully who we are, including the parts we've tried hardest to forget. There is no light without darkness, and there is no growth without truth. From the earliest years, we are taught to chase after symbols of achievement. Gold stars, grades, job titles, awards. We are praised not for who we are, but for how well we conform. The world hands us a blueprint and calls it success. Climb the ladder, acquire more, be seen, be envied, be secure. And so we move through life like actors handed a script we never wrote, performing roles we never questioned. But beneath this play is something quieter, deeper. A persistent voice, faint but unrelenting. It does not shout, it waits. It waits for us to ask not what we should do, but what we are meant to do. This voice is your calling. There is a chasm between ambition and purpose. Ambition can be fed from the outside, nourished by applause, status, and recognition. But purpose is born from within. It does not concern itself with approval, it concerns itself with truth. It is the seed planted in your soul long before you were ever old enough to explain it. For some, it may be art. For others, healing, teaching, building, storytelling, nurturing. But too often, we silence that voice out of fear that it will lead us away from safety. And in doing so, we betray the very essence of who we are. Imagine a woman who had everything the world tells us to want: wealth, security, power. She worked in a towering building with glass walls and city views, made more in a month than most make in a year, and wore confidence like armor. But behind that armor lived exhaustion, a quiet ache. It wasn't burnout, it was emptiness. She woke up each morning and asked, "Is this all there is?" That question, repeated long enough, becomes unbearable. And so she walked away, not because she was weak, but because she was ready to stop lying to herself. She started a small organic farm, worked with her hands, lived simply, and smiled in ways she hadn't since childhood. Her friends called it a crisis. She called it coming home. What the world sees as loss is often a return to the self. Success, as we've been taught to understand it, is often a substitute for identity. We mistake motion for meaning, busyness for fulfillment, money for worth. But if all your striving leads you away from your inner truth, then what have you truly gained? It is no accomplishment to win a race you never wanted to run. There is wisdom in stillness. In the quiet, you will begin to hear the parts of you that were drowned out by the noise. You will remember what made you come alive as a child. You will recognize the moments in your life when you felt not proud, but whole. These are not coincidences. They are clues. The process of returning to your calling is not always dramatic. It may not require quitting your job or moving to a cabin in the woods. Sometimes it is subtle. Choosing to write for 20 minutes before bed, offering comfort to a stranger, saying yes to the things that scare you but feel true. Your calling does not demand perfection. It asks only for presence, that you meet yourself fully and stop pretending that the map given to you by others is the only way to navigate this life. We are not here to perform, we are here to become. Your best self is not a product of how well you impress others, but how honestly you live in alignment with who you are. And if you are unsure of what that means, that is okay. It is not a question with one answer. It is a conversation unfolding over time. Begin by listening. In the stillness, in the loneliness, in the moments of deep dissatisfaction, there is often a signal, a crack in the wall, a tug in the chest. Follow it. You are not lost. You are being invited. Invited to shed the borrowed lives you've been carrying and to walk, perhaps slowly, toward the life that has been waiting for you all along. The one no one else can live, the one that is yours alone. When you find it, you will not need to announce it. The peace it brings will be louder than any applause. There is a quiet lie that creeps into the modern mind, that life is meant to be painless, that success is the absence of discomfort, and that happiness comes from eliminating all forms of struggle. We build our lives like fortresses to protect ourselves from uncertainty, discomfort, loss, and grief. We seek routines, distractions, pills, pleasures, noise. And in doing so we numb the very process that was designed to awaken us. For it is not comfort that transforms us, it is suffering. Pain is not a mistake, it is not a punishment, it is a signal, a summons, a sacred fire. Just as fire tempers steel, suffering tempers the soul. When life cracks us open, it does not do so to destroy us. It does so to reveal what lies beneath all we pretend to be. The person who has never suffered deeply may appear intact, but they are often untested, fragile, shallow. There is a certain depth that only those who have walked through fire possess. They have seen what remains when all illusions are stripped away, when ego fails, when control is lost. And it is in those moments, raw and exposed, that the real self begins to speak. In a study conducted at Harvard, researchers found something curious. Those who had faced moderate adversity in their lives reported greater overall life satisfaction and resilience than those who had faced none. It seems counterintuitive. We might assume that the smoothest path leads to the most happiness. But without struggle, there is no strength. Without loss, there is no appreciation. Without despair, there is no understanding of hope. The human soul grows through tension, not in its absence. Think of the man who was once obsessed with control. His calendar was always full, his plans always airtight. He feared failure so deeply that he left no room for error. Then one day, life unraveled his script. He lost his job, his marriage fell apart, and he found himself alone in a small apartment, staring into a silence he had avoided his entire life. For weeks he collapsed into despair. But it was in that stillness, in the hollow aftermath of breakdown, that something extraordinary happened. He began to notice small things again. The feel of sunlight on his face, the taste of warm food, the comfort of a sincere conversation. He began to write something he hadn't done in years, and from that writing he rediscovered his voice. It was not the life he once wanted, it was something truer. We often fear suffering as if it will annihilate us, but in truth it annihilates only the parts of us that were never real. The ego resists pain, but the soul understands its necessity. When we lose what we thought defined us, status, relationships, health, certainty, we meet the self beneath all masks, and there, in that fragile and sacred place, we encounter the raw material for transformation. It takes great courage to remain present when the world within you is burning, to not turn away, to not reach for the nearest distraction or false solution. But if you can sit inside your sorrow without rushing to escape it, you will find it has something to teach you. Grief is love in another form. Anger is often a cry for justice or boundaries long ignored. Anxiety can be the result of a life misaligned with one's true values. Every emotion, every pain, carries a message. It is not enough to survive them. You must listen. You are not broken. You are being broken open. There is a difference. The cracks in your life are not signs of failure. They are entry points for the light. The question is not whether you will suffer, it is what you will do with the suffering. Will you use it to grow, bitter, to harden, to retreat from the world? Or will you allow it to stretch you, deepen you, open you to truths you could not have accessed in any other way? Do not be afraid of the dark nights. They are necessary. They are sacred. Within them the seed of your best self is quietly germinating. And when the dawn returns, as it always does, you will find you are not who you once were. You will be more whole, more awake, more alive. The version of you who walks out of suffering will be the one who can finally hold life, not with trembling fear, but with steady, open hands. There is a quiet, dangerous comfort in believing that life is something happening to us rather than through us. It is tempting to look outward, to point to parents who failed us, lovers who left us, systems that limited us, or circumstances that crushed our hopes. It is seductive to believe that our suffering is someone else's fault, and that our healing will come from someone else's hands. But in handing over the blame, we also hand over our power. In clinging to our wounds like identities, we forget that healing, though painful, is our own sacred task. Blame is a thief dressed in relief. It offers a moment's peace by making someone else the villain. But it costs you your agency. Each time you say, "I am this way because of them," you build a prison and throw away the key. Yes, others may have hurt you. Yes, life may have been unfair, but the pain is now yours to carry. And more importantly, yours to understand, to heal, to transform. No one else can do this work for you. There is an old parable. A man's house is burning. As the flames rise, he falls to his knees and prays for God to save him. A boat arrives and the captain calls out, "Come aboard!" The man replies, "No, God will save me." A second boat arrives, then a third, each time the same answer. The man dies in the fire. When he reaches the afterlife, confused and disappointed, he asks why he wasn't saved. The answer, "I sent you 3 boats." We often fail to recognize the boats in our own lives. The job offer we didn't take because it was too risky. The hard conversation we avoided because it was uncomfortable. The help we refused because we were too proud to accept it. Life doesn't always rescue us with grand miracles. More often, it sends subtle opportunities disguised as inconvenience or fear. Responsibility begins with the ability to see clearly and to act. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It means owning your part. It means asking, "What can I do from here?" rather than waiting for someone else to rewrite the story. You are not the passive result of your past. You are the living author of what comes next. But authorship requires awareness, and it requires courage. It means facing the places where you've given your power away, and gently, without shame, reclaiming it. There was once a young man whose life was marked by failure. He grew up poor, surrounded by addiction and violence. He told himself that people like him were meant to struggle. He drank too much, quit jobs, blamed others for every misstep. But one night, alone and defeated, he looked in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back. Something shifted. Not a miracle, just a quiet moment of honesty. He realized that no one was coming to save him, and from that moment he began to change, not quickly, not perfectly, but intentionally. He returned to school, he sought out mentors, he worked long hours to break the cycles he once thought were permanent. Today he teaches others to do the same. Not because he is better, but because he finally understood that change was his to claim. The world owes you nothing. No one can live your life for you, and no one is responsible for the outcome but you. There is no guarantee that your efforts will be rewarded in the way you expect. But there is a guarantee that in owning your life fully, you will feel something far greater than success. You will feel real. You will feel whole. You will no longer be a guest in your own story, waiting to be rescued. You will be the one holding the pen. Every day, life hands you a choice. Will you stay small, wrapped in familiar excuses, or will you step forward, uncertain but awake, and begin the work of building something real? The boats are already arriving. They may not look like what you imagined, and the water may terrify you, but they are here, and they are waiting. We are taught from an early age that perfection is the goal. Be the best student, the most attractive, the most successful, the most put together. Flaws are to be corrected, weaknesses hidden, and failure avoided at all costs. But beneath this pursuit lies an unbearable weight, a quiet shame that we are never enough as we are. This relentless striving fragments us. We begin to curate ourselves, to compartmentalize our feelings, to show only the parts of ourselves that seem acceptable, and with each mask we wear, we drift further from who we truly are. But the soul does not crave perfection. It longs for wholeness. Wholeness is not about having it all together. It is about being fully together with all that you are. The strong parts, yes, but also the broken parts, the wounded parts, the forgotten and exiled parts. To be whole is to welcome the full range of your humanity. It is not the absence of imperfection that makes you powerful. It is your ability to integrate what is imperfect with compassion and truth. There is a Japanese art form called kintsugi, in which broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are illuminated. What was once damaged becomes the most beautiful and unique part of the object. It is not restored to its original condition. It becomes something more, something that holds its history with honor. You too are meant to be seen this way, not as a project to fix, but as a masterpiece in motion. Your scars are not failures, they are stories. They speak of resilience, of becoming, of surviving what was meant to break you. And there is a beauty in that which no flawless image could ever match. Wholeness asks something radical of us, to stop pretending, to stop performing for the approval of a world that cannot see our souls, to stop measuring ourselves against standards that were never ours to begin with. It asks us to look inward and listen, to the parts that are afraid, to the parts that are angry, to the parts that still grieve, not to judge them, not to silence them, but to understand them, to welcome them home. You cannot become your best self by rejecting your current self. You cannot become whole by denying half of who you are, and yet so many live this way, constantly editing, constantly reaching for an ideal that never arrives. They wonder why they feel so lost, so empty, even after achieving what they thought would make them happy. The truth is, you were never meant to be someone else. You were meant to return to yourself, to peel back the layers of expectations, wounds, comparisons, and remember the person you were before the world told you who to be. There is a quiet strength in those who embrace their contradictions. The ones who know they can be both soft and powerful, that they can cry and still lead, that they can carry ambition without losing their soul, that they can sit in stillness and still be moving forward. These people are not confused, they are complete. They are no longer trying to erase parts of themselves to fit in a frame too small for their spirit. The process of integration is not quick, it is not linear. It requires patience, humility, and honesty. But it is worth everything, because on the other side is freedom, the freedom to live as yourself, not as an imitator.